Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Sash Mailbag. Joining me today is James. James, how you going?
Hey Joel, good mate. Good to be with you. On where are we? I'm a bit lost with the Easter holidays. Wednesday afternoon for us. We're both off today, so we've jumped on a little bit earlier, and hopefully you've had a nice Easter.
Yeah, this is nice. It's been a bit of a weird week. I did a 9 a.m. pod on Monday and we're doing a 2 p.m. pod today. It's kind of, this is all new to me.
Rob did mention you were doing the 9 a.m. off the back of a long weekend. Anyone dusty on that?
No, we're all pretty good, to be honest. I think, Rob's got a kid. I've got a feeling, Ryan also has a kid. So it was going to be me if it was going to be anyone. But no, I was fine. So we're straight into it.
Very good. Yeah, I was asking that question generally, but it was certainly pointed towards towards you, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, we have a number of questions that have come through over the last few weeks. And, a couple of them are in a similar vein, so we've grouped them together. But let's jump straight into it. And I'll kick off with asking you the first one here, James. So this was sent in by Alex Barnett. Thank you, Alex. He said he wants to hop on the back of the Roberts convo that we've been having. He said Roberts has been giving him major Zorko vibes, bringing energy, cares, calm head off halfback. Absolutely loving his development. Not sure what to think about Perkins. He shows something sometimes, but I don't know exactly what that is. What's his role moving forward? Half forward, mid, trade fodder. He said, love the pod, go Plains. But yeah, he's given us the Archie chat there. So let's start with the first Archie. Zorko vibes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Alex, and yeah, probably agree with that comparison. Although I'm not sure I'd put calm next to Zorko's name. Certainly off the back of that game against Collingwood, where he had a couple of brain explosions. I'm not sure whether I'd say he's calm, but I can certainly see the comparison. And yeah, as we've spoken about, certainly we're all pretty keen on Archie here at the Sash, that's for sure, and I'm sure many of the listeners are as well. He's got that beautiful balance of toughness, but he's also got that skillfulness that you need to kind of play outside halfback wing, which is what he's doing really well. Obviously received the Rising Star nomination and a pretty strong crop of young kids again this year. So obviously, having that external praise alongside the obviously internal praise that I'm sure he's getting is always nice. And yeah, he looks like he's cemented himself in the best 22 and like what he brings to the table.
Is he? Let's talk about the Rising Star for a second, because it's generally it's kind of decided. It almost feels like before the season. There's like your top one or two draft picks, and the father sons, and you're like, okay, well it's going to be an Ashcroft or a Laylaw, and that's just kind of it. But is he a smoky? Like, is it possible, that he could be up there?
Always question and maybe a bit, kind of getting into conspiracy areas here, but I feel like there's always a few names that pop up in the market for the Rising Star that have already played the year before, maybe only a handful of games, but sort of coming into that second season as still eligible for that. I never really feel like they're in with a look. Obviously, they're still eligible officially, but like you said, I always feel like it's the hot new property coming in the most recent draft that's realistically going to win it. I'd like to think based off his output and what I think he can achieve this year that, yeah, he would be amongst those names. But unfortunately, I think they probably look at the newer kids coming in the draft. That's just how I see it.
No, I mean, I agree with you as well, but it is a bit of a shame. He's averaging over 20 touches a week. His disposal efficiency is great. His contest work is fantastic. So realistically, he should be in the conversation. I got him at 67 at the start of the year, and he's come in from there. So I'm hoping he keeps coming in a bit further. But it was.
I hope you'll say that I'm wrong on that assessment, and hopefully change their mind. I haven't gone back and looked at halfwood, and so maybe what I'm saying is complete rubbish. That's just the gut feeling that I have. Yeah, that's certainly a good get, and maybe that cash out's looking healthy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, got to work on that. The Perkins one's an interesting one. I think I think his role isn't as a midfielder. I think his role is in the forward line, and that mould where maybe he does pinch in the middle. But I think he gives more for us as someone that's dangerous around goal as opposed to in the middle. I mean, he could be trade fodder. It's other clubs would definitely look at him. However, I still see a long-term role for Perko in our team, playing in a half-forward role. He just needs to build confidence. He's clearly had his confidence shot. He's had a year or two where he hasn't come on with as big of a bang as he think he would have hoped. But, we have games on the weekend where he kicks a couple and a few important goals. And the week before, he took a couple of really, really strong marks and held on to the footy. So I think if he can just slowly piece here and there stuff together, hopefully once he gets to that 100 games mark, he's really ready to launch.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree with Alex on that point around Perkins as well. He does show something. What exactly that is, it's hard to put your finger on sometimes. But I think we can all agree that he's got the talent and he's shown that. But it's that consistency that you really look for. And we spoke in the preseason around him being a part of that kind of core group coming up to sort of around that 100 games mark where you really feel they can take the next step, and Perko is obviously one of those, as we've spoken about. And was coming off a quad, had a couple of weeks off. I thought he was good in moments against West Coast. Obviously kicked those really important back-to-back goals for us. Took a couple of good grabs, as you mentioned, in those last couple of games he played as well. So you'd like to see more from Perko, but I'm sure that consistency will come. And I certainly couldn't see him being traded away. I think it would pain me terribly to see him go and shine at another club after we put in the time and development into him. And I spoke in preseason. I still really feel that he can play that kind of stringer role and play a little bit of forward, a little bit of mid when we need it, but predominantly forward for mine as well.
Yep. Now you got to. There's another question here, James. I'll throw it to you for this next one.
Beautiful. Flow through to number 2. So Will Hockey has sent in, is there a correlation between our younger players getting buzz cuts and them having the most shithouse season afterwards? Cheers.
I think there's a correlation between young players coming to Essendon and then becoming shit. So I don't know if it's the haircut that does it. I think it's the club. I was hoping the haircut might maybe change that. It's nice seeing a bit of camaraderie against younger players and them all going for a similar thing. But unfortunately, I think it's just an Essendon thing as opposed to a buzz cut thing. Although I think Hobbsy was referred to as a staffy with his cut the other night, and I actually think it's working for Hobbs. So he's maybe bucking the trend and hopefully getting it moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm sort of, and I think we spoke about this kind of pre-season, maybe kind of early in the season, around, Perkins coming back with the buzz cut, Hobbsy coming back with the buzz cut. I see Nate's gone the buzz. I know he's usually got a bit of blonde through there, but I don't mind the no-nonsense haircut for guys like that. We've probably spoken a little bit about, are they fully invested? Are they a bit showy? Get rid of the flash haircuts, no-nonsense buzz cut, and get in and under. And Hobbsy's certainly doing that. Hopefully Perko and Co can join him.
Yeah. It's a bit military, but could work for us. It's kind of that Brad Ball. No hair, no fuss. You're right.
Well, I know you are a fan of the mullet, Joel. So
yeah, that's right.
I know you'd be happy to see a couple of them, and our man Archie Roberts has still got a few long locks out the back there, so he's flying the flag for you.
Yeah. Do not cut your hair, Archie, please. We've already seen it ruin one, Archie. The third question is from Mark Collins. Rob and Co, James and Joel on this one. Just food for thought. Do you think our 2018-2019 playing group could have won a final if we had the right head coach instead of Worsfold? Let me give you a mock 2018 list. Starting from the back line for us to dive into this. Mark Bagley, Michael Hurley, Adam Sard, Connor McKenna, Michael Hartley, Andrew McGrath, Zaharakis, Heppel Goddard, Devon Smith, Danaher, Jake Stringer, McDonald, Tippenwoody, Carl Hooker in the forward line, and Fantasia in the other forward pocket. With Belcho, Merritt, and Darcy Parish following the ball. We've got a couple others in there. Gleeson, Paddy Ambrose, James Stewart. What do you reckon? Is that a team that could have won a final?
On paper, it seems relatively strong, particularly some of those spine names that you mentioned there. Hurley, I think Hooker was on that list as well. When I was having a look, when he was consistently playing that year, I'm not sure. I know he obviously had his injury troubles, but a backline consisting of Hooker and Hurley. Hartley, I thought he always punched above his weight when he played as well. And then Devon Smith obviously played some really good footy for us when he came into the side. Fantasia again, another one of those guys that when he was up and about, he was pretty electric, but that was few and far between, and we've seen that continue when he's gone to Carlton more recently as well. I'm just having a look at the ladder. We finished 11th that year. We had 12 wins alongside North, Port, and Adelaide, so sort of a bunch field there from 9th to 12th. I guess the question you're really asking me is how much of an effect did Worsfold have on our ability to generate wins? And I think we could all agree that he had a fairly negative impact when it came to results. The Worsfold switch, I know, still haunts Rob. It was an exciting brand of footy, and I mentioned the names there, but when you've got a style of play that seems to limit the output and the flair of some of those players, it makes it pretty difficult. So, yeah, I'm going to say yes. I'll answer that with a yes. I think we probably could have done better with that list, but you probably can't single out just that group of players. You can probably say that for an extended period of time for us.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one because you look at, you mentioned it about Fantasia, and on this list we had a Devon Smith at his prime, as you said, Hurley, Hooker. Zach Merritt was already playing good footy by then. Brendan Goddard. There are names there, but then I also look at them and I just still always have that feeling like I don't know if there's enough A graders for us to maybe to win a final, but I don't think there was anything there to go deep in finals necessarily.
Probably tend to agree with you in that regard in terms of A graders. Zach Merritt. Hurley at his best,
We're very at his best team. That's our issue, isn't it? It's always been our issue. We're a very at their best team. If we get everyone playing at their best, then that's all well and good. But it's not often the case that we've got everyone at their best.
No, and even everyone just healthy.
That's right.
More recently, the examples continue of crying out for your Ridley and your Mackay and your Reid to play together, and it's been years and years of that, and it's only just now they're starting to string some games together, touch wood. So it seems to be always an issue that we face, but I'd like to think that with a different coach at that time, we saw what Hardwick was able to do at Richmond when he got a good run at it. There's plenty of examples out there. So I'd like to say yes and have a real what if about it.
All right, nice. Yeah, love it.
Beautiful.
What do you got?
Moving on to number 4, and I've got a few kind of in here together for you, Joel. As you can imagine, a large group of questions flowing in around the mid-season draft. Everyone started to have a look towards them, with obviously our ruck stocks taking, a significant hit over the last few weeks. So I'll read them all out and then we can work through them sort of one by one. First one is from Matt Crisp, mid-season draft options, ? Paulie Jones has said surely we pick up Braden Crossley in the mid-season draft. Christopher Hocking, Ford or Ruck in mid-season draft. Our friends over at The Debrief have also thrown in one there, which I'll read out, and that's when will Rob cut his hair? So I'll let you think about that one in advance. But we'll start with mid-season draft options. I know we were speaking before we started recording about a couple of names. Anyone that's popped up for you, Joel? I know Crossley was obviously mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, any options from us?
I think it's a ruck. It has to be a ruckman. That's, there's a few questions about that. It's definitely a ruckman. We'll talk about Braden Crossley, as his name was mentioned. He I think he played 10 games for the Suns. Was delisted at the end of 2019 after being handed an anti-doping suspension. I've just read in the notes that I've taken. So get him in. No, he's been a really prominent ruckman at the VFL. He played in the grand final last year, was in the VFL team of the year, or in the squad at least. And so he looks like someone who is ready-made. He looks like one of those ruckmen that has mongrel. He's got this huge handlebar moustache, and it's when you look at the people that are dominating at the moment, he looks like one of those ones that can compete with them and throw weight around and kind of be aggressive. And that we don't need a superstar. We're not going to get a superstar necessarily out of the VFL, but what we can get is someone who competes really, really hard and someone who doesn't let the other ruckman gain a significant amount of dominance. So I think Crossley, if available at the pick that we have, would be a good option. Is there anyone else for you there, James?
The other name that came up I reckon I probably read it maybe sort of a month ago, in one of those kind of phantom kind of draft things linking players to certain clubs. And funnily enough, before the injuries to Brian and Draper, I saw the name keeper Cooper Keogh pop up, who's a VFL ruckman for Coburg. Now, I'm not going to lie, I certainly don't know too much about him, but it was interesting that we're already linked to him and keeping a close eye on him. I'm sure that interest hasn't disappeared since Brian and Draper have gone down. He looks like a mature age, big body, 200 centimeters. Looks like he had a bit of a basketball background as well. So no doubt the media will love playing along with that storyline like they usually do. And yeah, I think it's probably between him and Crossley from my understanding. There could be a wild card in there, but we've obviously got Vicentini already on our list as kind of that project, if you like, of a young guy that's continuing to develop. He's still only 19, so I have no doubt he'll get his opportunity. The way things will obviously pan out with Goldie, not really going to be able to play every game, I wouldn't have thought. So he's probably going to get his opportunity, and then whoever comes in out of probably Keogh or Crossley, they'll need to be ready-made because there's no doubt they're probably going to get an opportunity at some point as well.
Yeah, well, we've got I think we've got 3 potential options, or 3 picks in the mid-season draft, given our 3 long-term injuries that we've sustained over the last 3 weeks. A lot of 3s. So, I don't know if we'll need to use all 3, but it gives us the option of getting a forward under ruck if we need to. Although if you were a forward, and based on the numerology I was just talking about, you wouldn't want to be the 3rd forward in as many years joining us in a non-traditional way because another ACL's coming, like it did with Edwards and what was he? Who was a bloke before that got injured and then delisted that we picked up in the mid-season draft? Who I think was over from Perth as well, I think. But anyway.
Jaden, someone was it?
Yes.
Jaden Hunter, I want to say.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Poor thing. So yeah, you'd be coming in like, what the fuck's going to happen to me if I go with this club?
Yeah, the curse of the hanger, hey.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with Dad over the weekend, and it just feels like every time an Essendon player, grabs at a hammy, it's worst case scenario, or someone goes down, and the Brian incident, something as innocuous as that, it's season ending. But then you looked at Sam Darcy the other night, and there's talk of an ACL, and obviously he's going to still be out for a long time, but. He avoids the ACL. It just feels like there's a real curse around our injuries, and always ending up being, just about as bad as we can get. And then we've obviously got the dreaded TBC, the Jimmy Stewart as well, which freaks up every now and then. And I think it's lashed itself to Darcy Parish most recently. He's got the dreaded TBC next to his name. So, yeah, we don't have much luck on that front.
Darcy Parish will be PVC soon once he's at the glue factory. I reckon he's already a star. Do you want to read this next one, actually? Because I've got the answer that
I thought
has been sent there.
I'd give you just the heads up on it there to come up with something. But as I said, our friends at the debrief sent across question number 5, and that was, when will Rob cut his hair?
I'm going to say for him when Essendon wins the final. I'm just putting it out there. We haven't spoken about this, but I'm just putting it out there. When Essendon wins the final, I want Rob to cut his hair. And I want to be the one cutting it. I
was going to say, I'll jump in there. I think it could be a home job after a few celebratory cans, and I think we can get our hands on some clippers. We could do a bit of a job on it. Yeah,
100%. But yeah, fair point there, debrief. Now, Cal's written in, and I got an answer from Rob for this, so I'll read Rob's answer out after I read the question. He said, "What's the story of how all you guys met?" Well, James and I that were on the call together. We actually worked together. That was how you and I met. I was working somewhere, and James joined us, and we worked together for a couple of years, and obviously immediately bonded over the plight of being a Dons supporter. I always knew he would be a good Sash member if the opportunity came up. So I was very happy to get him in touch with Rob when required. Now, this is Rob's response. The very first season of the Sash I did with a former workmate, Mark. We had a few different third panellists who rolled through in that first year. The next season, I stopped working with Mark and wanted to find some new people to get involved with the show. My workmate, Adrian, debrief, that we just heard from, suggested some friends of his who could get involved, some who I'd met before. That's where Mert, Kingo, Ollie, and the first Ryan, aka Dumb Damo, got involved. Joel and I have been friends since I was at uni, but he was living in Sydney at the time, so would occasionally dial in as the interstate correspondence. Once he moved back to Melbourne, became a regular fixture on the show. Jesse was brought onto the show by Mert as another mega nuffy who'd make a good fit. Dr. Damo is an extended family member of mine, and after a few years of Don's chat at the family functions and me visiting him for my various running injuries, I invited him to come on. James is one of Joel's old workmates, as we've just spoken about. Used to sit with us at the footy and then got involved. And then New Ryan was someone who expressed interest in writing for the website. And after doing that for a year, asked if he was interested in getting on here and joining us on the pod. Bit of a ragtag group from old friends, extended family, work colleagues, and blokes met along the way who love Dons. So that's the story. That's nice, isn't it, James? Just a nice, heartwarming little story about how we all...
That is, we all come from various different backgrounds and met each other. Some, as you said, good mates, some kind of re-ins like myself, but we've all got the one thing in common, and that's we're all passionate about the Dons, and often we're all sympathising with each other many more times than we celebrate, unfortunately, but hopefully that luck will turn. And it's always a pleasure jumping on here, and appreciate all the listeners tuning in and sending the questions as well, which is making the mailbag possible, and we're really enjoying that as well.
Yeah, it's lots of fun. All right. Well, look, you know what? I'm going to ask you the next one because I just answered that whole one. So Black Sail in the Sunset 8 says, why play Old Gold? Why not play Vigo and give him the opportunity? Invest in the future.
Yeah, fair question. One that was discussed over Easter for my family as well, and I think we've kind of met in the middle here. And I hate to sit on the fence, but I think we're probably going to have a little bit of both. To be honest, I think I'll use Anzac Day as the example. That's obviously the game coming up, and arguably the biggest home and away fixture for the year. I just think someone with the experience of Old Gold, the occasion's not going to overwhelm him, and he's going to probably, put in a pretty good performance fresh, I'd expect. He's obviously been playing a bit of VFL and putting out his usual sort of numbers. Obviously a big challenge against a Ruckman like Darcy Cameron, who's playing some really good footy at the moment. But I feel like he's going to be pretty level-headed. The occasion's not going to get the better of him. I think he's a perfect guy to come in and hopefully play really, really well for us. And then the second part to that is, and I spoke about it a little bit before as well, Vicentini's going to get his chance this year. Goldie simply isn't going to be able to play 18 games in a row, even if he doesn't have any injuries. I think the plan would be to kind of rest him here and there, maybe not send him to do interstate trips, something along those lines. So I think we're going to see Vicentini and probably, as I said before, whoever we look at in the mid-season draft get their opportunity. So I think we're going to have a bit of both and a real opportunity for Vicentini, probably earlier than he would have liked and probably the club. But again, I don't mind investing in the future, playing some kids, have a look at them. And yeah, use Goldstein where we can to bring in a bit of experience. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've said this a few times with other questions that have been sort of similar around playing kids, and we have been playing kids this year already. But I think while we're still in with a chance of playing finals, which we are based on our win-loss record at the moment, I think exactly in games like this, you have to go with experience. And maybe Vigo can get some gains toward the end of the year if it looks like the season's really tailed off. And I do think we should invest in a ruck in the mid-season draft. But, for 100,000 people at the G, we need someone with a level head, and we also need to play experience that might lead to us being competitive on the day. And we don't want Vigo to come up against, Ruckman, who's killing it at the moment, and then be overawed by the occasion as well. So I think we've just got to be careful playing kids too much before they're ready, whilst we're still in with a chance of having an impact on this season. Get the games into them once it's a little bit over and done with, I think, to a certain extent. Obviously, we are blooding some people, but you can't have too many that are that raw.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have predicted what was going to happen with Brian and Draper, but we've got a perfect replacement in Goldie for an occasion such as this, and the risk you take if you send out a Vicentini on the weekend is that he gets absolutely mauled, and it just destroys his confidence. He's only 19, as I mentioned, so Goldie in this week, and then let's see what happens. But yeah, you can certainly expect to see Vicentini and probably a mid-season draft pickup play in this sort of second half of the year. Next question for you, Joel, from Travis Porter. How many debutants would you like to see get their chance this year?
We've already seen a few. I think we've had 3 so far, potentially 4. It might even be so far this year. So I think that's been a good move. It almost feels like Zach Reed's a debutant as well, to be fair. But I think definitely Lewis Hayes we will see, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. I think he has to be a lock for a debut. And then, the other people that we would consider, I don't know if it's as essential. There's been good talk around Zach Johnson, a lot of talk recently around Archie Daywicks. Jaden Ewan apparently played quite well on the weekend. But I think the feeling I get from most of them is that, spending a year in the VFL is not going to be a bad thing developing. So I think Hayes is probably the obvious extra one who has been biding his time a little bit and been pretty consistent. So I think for me, I would say that would be the one. If I maybe one more, I would be happy with. It'd be great to see others, but I think if we put Hayes in, and that's 4 or 5 in total for the year, plus potentially a mid-season draftee that comes in, then that's good.
Yeah, agreed. I think Lewis Hayes continues to play really well in the twos. He probably doesn't get his opportunity unless we have another injury. But the way that things are going, I certainly wouldn't rule that out. But he continues to put his hand up for selection. He just needs that opportunity. And then, the other 2 names that sort of came to mind for me were Zach Johnson as well, and probably Angus Clark. Again needs an opportunity. He's probably not pushing anyone out just yet. In that back line, I know plenty of people would say McGrath, but I think we all know that's not happening. Yeah. But maybe we'll see them towards the end of the year if all hope is lost of challenging. Maybe they get an opportunity even as a sub just to give them the experience. Yeah,
well, I think Pryor has actually also. He's getting better week by week as well. He's starting to look more solid. So, it's relatively steady, and we do want to keep that back 6 as steady as possible to get them playing together. Now, Craig has sent in a question. Craig Canavo, interesting one. Should Kako get a run on the ball standing shoulder to shoulder with Nick Dacos, James?
I was going to say that hope I'd say that's probably plan B, but maybe that's plan X or Z. But
Yeah.
I think Brisbane were left scratching their head the other night. They didn't have any other plans left for Dacos. He absolutely dominated. If it means we're doing something to try and quell his influence, then I'm all for it. I don't think that'll be plan A, though. I'd prefer Kako in the forward line, trying to cause them headaches rather than use him to try and shut down one of their players. He's the sort of guy that can keep them accountable on the other end. But yeah, I don't mind the thought of him actually going on ball. I think the last couple of weeks he's looked a little bit lost, and we've struggled to get him into the game. When the ball's in his hands, good things happen. But with these younger players, sometimes they float in and out of the game, and then we often see that happen with small forwards in general. So I'm not against kind of putting him in on ball every now and then, just to get him into the game. But yeah, I don't know if I'd be throwing him to the Wolves and putting him on Nick Day on Anzac Day. I feel like a Setterfield or a Durham would be chomping at the bit to get first crack.
Yeah. It's if we do see that, things are probably not going that well. But I'd love to see Kako play a good game on Friday. He's kept his pressure up the last few weeks, but if he could kick a couple of snags, that'd be awesome for him.
Absolutely. Next question. I'll ask the question before I tell you who sent it in, and I'll let the listeners play at home have a guess. Question 10: Why are we so shit? From
Wonder who?
Mert. Joel, why are we so shit?
That is a Mert question, if I've ever heard one. It takes a long time to turn the Titanic. I've said this a few times. We have had mediocre performance for a significantly long time, as well as mediocre administration, and poor strategy when it came to drafting, and also bad luck. Kind of in there as well. We've probably had some things not go our way, but I have faith in Brad Scott. I think we are heading in the right direction. I think we can see a game plan. I think we're getting players be more competitive. I think we look fitter than we did 2 or 3 years ago. And we've had some lapses in concentration and game plan that cost us early in the season. But I do think we are becoming a better team. And I do think as the people you've sort of mentioned, the Caldwells, Durhams, Nick Martin, as they get more experience and older, I think we will become more competitive, and it can feel like it's a long, long way away and that we are shit. And I was calling full rebuild after Adelaide as well. So I've definitely been there, and I do think we need to still get some players out and get some players in, but I don't think we're as shit as we have been. And I like to think we're on the right path.
Yeah, I'm always pretty optimistic. I've been on the Scott bandwagon. I think he's the right man for the job. I think we are slowly turning the tide, but if you believe all the reports you've seen around, the cultural issues and players, shaming others for not going above and for going above and beyond, that doesn't change overnight. That's ingrained. And apart from that Adelaide loss, which mind you was as disappointing in terms of lack of effort that I've seen for a long time. Apart from that Adelaide game, we've been, thereabouts this year in terms of being relatively competitive and scraping through a couple of close wins that, in the past probably drop those games against Port and West Coast. 3 wins in a row now. All the expectation is on Collingwood to win and win well. We've lost our 2 first elect ruckman. Come out and have a crack and see what happens on Friday. But yeah, like you said, it takes a long time to change these things that have been part and parcel for us for a long, long time. But I like where we're going. I like the young talent. Rob and I had a chat about the future and in terms of the next draft hand that we have, some academy players, a good draft pool at the moment. So, things are looking up, but a bit deflated with these injuries recently for sure.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, let's fly through these next few quickly, and then we'll spend a bit of time on the last one. So Anthony Matthews sent in a question: can we take the lid off if we beat the Pies?
I don't say lid off anymore. I say buy tickets to the train, and I will be I will be purchasing a ticket from Jesse for the train, because that'd be 4 in a row, with a couple more winnable games on the horizon as well, and plenty of people talking about Collingwood being the best side in it at the moment. It'd be hard to keep people off the train, I reckon, and. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the roster yet, but I really hope that Jesse's on next week. If we do manage to break a win, that'll be some good listening, and I reckon the train might get a mention in a few of those hot takes as well. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself there. But yeah, definitely, why not? I reckon lid off if you beat the Pies, no matter what's going on.
100% agreed.
Question 12 from Sammy Birdo: does Parrish walk back into the midfield when fit?
I think he should play in the VFL, and I don't think he necessarily walks back in. I think if he plays in the VFL and he's playing well, then yes. But he came back last year and wasn't that effective for a good few games, and I didn't think his running capacity looked good. So I don't think he does at the moment, Sammy. If our current midfield keeps playing well, I wouldn't put him in necessarily, off the back of an injury over Does or Caldwell or Merritt, and even Setterfield at the moment, given his defensive prowess. So I'm going to say no, and I think he should return via the VFL.
Yeah, and I think Scott alluded to that last time when he was working his way back. I know he obviously had that calf injury that's obviously set him back to the dreaded TBC, but I think Scott made it pretty clear he'd be coming back via the VFL and working his way back to the side. But for me, it's probably Setterfield's spot in that midfield. He plays a similar role. Sardis is obviously fighting for a similar position as well. So yeah, if they stay fit and healthy, it's going to be competitive, but that's never a bad thing to have that depth, and things can change quickly, and we've just seen that. So I agree with you on that one.
Now, final one from Johnson and Friends. Considering Brian and Draper both gone for the season, do we have a new pass mark for the club in 2025?
Yeah, I don't like putting the pass mark as kind of wins and losses. I'm sounding a bit like Scott there. I don't want to be...
That is so Scott. That is the most Brad Scott answer.
I hated myself as I was speaking. But I think for us, it's about seeing the players develop, seeing that core group that I spoke about continue to string games along together, see our back six play consistently together. I spoke about Ridley, Mackay and Reid, building that chemistry and staying fit. Unfortunately, we won't see Brian and Draper continue that this year, but, gives an opportunity for Vicentini to come in and show us a little bit. So that's probably what I'm measuring it on more so. And then I guess overall, just playing a consistent brand of footy. I think this year to date, and I know it's still early, has shown more than ever that if you show up and you've got that intensity and effort, the ladder position and the odds don't mean much. And I hope we see that on Friday on a big occasion as well. So I think that's kind of how I look at it for a pass mark, whether that's, scraping into the finals, whether that's finishing 14th or 15th. Only the future will tell, but that's kind of what I look at in terms of a pass mark for us.
Yep. I would agree. It's about the development of players that have potential and not necessarily about results. Obviously it would be fantastic to keep winning games and then hopefully still end up with a pretty good draft pick thanks to Melbourne. But good season out of Cato. Oh my God, Caddy and Kako.
Scott, whatever Scott said that time, I feel like it's contagious. Everyone's doing it. Is.
And you made a really good point around consistency with the back six. I think we all want that. We want that group to play together, and all three of the big guys down there, Ridley, Mackay, and Reid, have all had injury issues, and like you kind of watch each week holding your breath a little bit. But I would love to come through a season of them really building some chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, that does us for this episode of the Mailbag. Thank you so much for joining me, James. Appreciate your insight.
No, it's great to be on. And as I said, it's something a little bit different for the Wednesday afternoon, but it's been enjoyable. And thanks again for all the listeners sending in the questions. It's been good fun, the Mailbag, and yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah, that's right. Appreciate everyone sending the questions in. And yeah, fingers crossed that we have a good result on Friday and that the lid's off and the train's on the tracks. All right. This has been the Sash Mailbag. Go Dons.
Go Plains.